everybody. So this is a last minute um chat that I felt that was needed. I have Iggy with me. Um, di- what was your pronouns again?
He, him.
He him. Okay. He is a part of what do you organize? I should ask that first. I know
Yeah,
that
no,
he has
I'm
legal
with
politics like mine, which is why I wanted to have him on.
I'm with FTP DMV.
Oh, awesome! And what are they about?
It's a like Maoist intermediate organization.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, and in this short time, this was definitely not expected. So, I'm going to play a clip real quick, guys, from Breakthrough News live stream today. Just a quick clip from the Answer Coalition to get to show a little gist of what we're going to talk about today and put together our perspectives, which is so important.
Thanks very much for having me.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Answer Coalition certainly a venerable name in the U.S. anti-war movement.
Can people hear that?
I'm curious your thoughts and what Answer is.
We're going to try that again. I don't think people can hear that. So yeah, I'm going to play a clip real quick right here about a live stream about the anti-war movement that just happened. I mean, about a live stream about the Answer Coalition that was a part of a panel, which I think is very important. So here we go. And Iggy, I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, while I get this up, we might as well talk about your thoughts. What were your first initial thoughts this morning when you first read about what just happened in Ukraine?
Honestly, I was like a little bit surprised that Russia went through with it. I kind of was more in the camp that they were going to be just pushing for a political concession, but I guess they haven't gotten that. So I'm not like that surprised because this has been an ongoing thing in the media for quite some time.
Right, right.
But
And
still,
yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying I wasn't I was kind of taken aback. I think we got lulled into the idea that conventional war in Europe is just not something that happens. So
Right,
it is kind of shocking.
right, right. That is so that is so true. When has there been full conflict like this recently? Honestly, in Europe, um, was it
I, I, I guess
Yugoslavia?
Yugoslavia counts.
Yeah, yeah. That was crazy. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Before we go any further in the discussion, play the clip real quick.
Not only the nature of this conflict, but for people here in the United States, how they should be relating to what is maybe not troops on the battlefront, but clearly an escalation from President Biden vis-a-vis sanctions and other measures.
Well, I would say to start with that, it's very regrettable to see another war, and the consequences. There will be bad consequences for people from the war, maybe on both sides. We have no idea. This is the very beginning. But we really have to address ourselves here in the United States too. Why is this happening? Why is this war happening? And those responsible for this war, above all and fundamentally, are the U.S. and NATO. And they have pushed. And, I wanted to make a connection between your earlier speaker who was talking about Maidan and what happened then and the present, 2014 and 2022. 2014 and in the years leading up to it, we had the Obama-Biden, and in the first term, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. That was the regime. And that regime continued on. It was there. Victoria Nuland, Hillary Clinton's protege, was there in the Maidan, and really the organizer of the overthrow of the government and the replacement at that time. And then we see this whole crew is back. The whole crew, Jake Sullivan is the national security advisor, and Kurt Campbell in charge of China, and Victoria Nuland, undersecretary of state, and then Biden, who had the portfolio of Ukraine back in 2014 and 2015. So here's a group that came back in. They overreached, I believe, in 2014. They thought that overthrowing the government at that time would lead to the complete takeover and integrating Ukraine into NATO and taking over Crimea and all that. And of course, the Russian government couldn't accept that. And it's not just the government of Putin that couldn't accept that. Whether the head of the leader of the government in Russia was named Lenin or Stalin or Khrushchev or Putin, none of them could accept that. None of them could accept that idea of what was going to happen. So they pushed back, but the U.S. hasn't given up. So now we have the same crew back in with the same obvious intentions of sealing the rest of the border on the European side with Russia, with NATO base and NATO member states, NATO bases, and they can't accept it. So there was a buildup to this, and one of your earlier speakers said that the West treats and the U.S. treats Russia with contempt. They treated them with total contempt. There was no to everything that Russia proposed, and that led to a situation where I believe that the Russian government, had to decide whether to capitulate or to do something else. I think we were surprised, and I have to say that, or surprised by the fact that war broke out in the way that it did. But if you look at the situation, and if you look at what brought this about, and also I just wanted to say there was a couple of the guests earlier said there are two imperialist countries. I think that's a wrong way to frame this. It's not the U.S. that's being surrounded by Russia while NATO surrounds Russia. No, nothing like that is happening. It's a capitalist country. We know that. It's not a socialist country anymore, but it's the target. And this is part of what the real U.S. global strategy is, which is a strategy of global domination.
Yeah, I think that's.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to show that part real quick, because I felt that out of everything in that whole panel, what they were talking about, that really kind of striked exactly what the conversation that we as socialists should be having. What do you think, Iggy?
So I think I think a lot of people on the entire political spectrum, regardless of background, are kind of not adjusting to the fact that we are moving out of the era of total U.S. hegemony over the world system. The U.S. has been in a geopolitical retreat for quite a while, and doesn't have the ability to project power like it used to. And right. I think that's why we're seeing the U.S. get so aggressive, with the Bush wars, and lately with its incursions into Syria and things like Maidan and the failed coups in Bolivia and Venezuela. But I think leftists should face facts that we are in an era of imperial competition. So that's really what this is it's two imperial powers, one that's retreating and one that's advancing, fighting over a smaller country that has less resources. At least it has natural resources, but doesn't have the same military resources as either NATO or the Russian Federation.
Yeah, I really think that NATO, this whole expansion and there's also that pipeline that we should talk about later. But the whole expansion of NATO, and like you said, like their power is dwindling, especially imperial power for the U.S. especially it's dwindling because they had all these high hopes of toppling all these governments. They had their plan in the Pentagon before. I guess Wesley Clark, who was a general in the past, he's the one that basically put it all down on what was their plan and stuff. But what he never mentioned Ukraine in that speech, and I really do think that this would have never happened if Ukraine wasn't toppled by a neo-fascist government in 2014 that was supported by us. I mean, neo-fascist coup, not government. By neo-fascist coup that was supported by us. Well, them, the ruling class. I don't want to. I don't want to say us, the working class, because we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know that was going to happen. Yeah. Russia is an interesting. The name Putin, I see it triggers a lot of people here, and I'm not pro Putin, but when I talk about this foreign policy and stuff like that, people think that I'm pro Putin. That makes no sense to me. Like, have you dealt with that before too? Just talking about like just foreign policy.
I mean, it's sort of like dealing with Stalin. Any like boogeyman, if you have like an even-handed analysis of them, even if you're say like not pro Stalin or not pro Putin, if you're even-handed at all next to the like completely unhinged propaganda that's coming out of the U.S. Bourgeois media, like you look like a sycophant just for being normal.
Yeah.
It's like the way they talk about Putin is like, oh, finally, we've got a good villain.
Right? I've read articles about how they were saying, I think it was CNN, they were saying that he's basically sitting in his room, being isolated, becoming a madman. So they already starting the propaganda to try to villainize him. I definitely agree with that. And even though I don't agree with Putin, my issue is just looking at the Donbass situation. I don't think he should have made that independent republic. I think he should have did a different situation. But this is a civil war that's going on, right? For the last 8 years that has never got any media coverage. 14,000 people have died. He just spoke about that massacre in the video. And that's what Zelensky campaigned on when that was supposed to be the new hope, from my understanding, right? In 2019, while they were having this neo-fascist coup when Zelensky got elected.
Yeah, Zelensky's sort of like he's a moderate, and a lot of Western commentators have pointed out like his identity as like a Jewish man as being like a way of downplaying the seriousness of like the Nazi element within the Ukrainian military. But like the main thing I think is like Zelensky is not as strong as like people think. I think Western commentators or just commentators in general want to like kind of create like a simple story for how to understand conflicts like this. So they put it down to personalities. But like the president of Ukraine is not as strong as you'd think, because like I feel like it would be within it's definitely within the interests of Zelensky and the Kiev government to curtail the strength and like ability to project independent power of things like national anarchist and the right sector and the Azov battalion, but they just haven't been able to control any of the neo-Nazi groups within the country.
I agree. That's what I've been seeing for the last few years, reading about this. I agree. Continue. You had another thought?
Yeah, well, I'm just and another thing that Western commentators have pointed out is like, oh, the like Svoboda did not poll very well in the parliamentary elections that saw like Zelensky elected. They only got like 3%. But I think that's missing The fact that essentially these far-right militias, they already have arms, like more advanced arms than even fascist militias in the United States have. So they have arms, and they have some of them control territory. So they already have the ability to project power directly. I don't think they really care about the elections as much as people think they do.
Right.
But I also think the like there's a habit on the other side as well, you know, of trying to make this into something very simple, like with like you'll see a lot of like Marxist Leninists try to make out Putin to be honestly something he's not. It's like the inversion of the Saturday morning cartoon villain that the U.S. media is running with, where like they make out every Ukrainian soldier to be a member of Azov Battalion, when Azov Battalion has like 1,000 troops, and thank God they've definitely got less now. So
yeah, oh man, it was brutal.
Yeah,
I'm hearing right now.
I'm trying to find reports, because I've heard reports that Azov's been hit pretty hard, but I can't find where people are getting that. That might just be one of those rumors that crops up, but I'm really hoping it's true.
Yeah, and for people that don't watch, that haven't heard of the Azov Battalion, I have also covered about them and talked about it. They were basically the National Guard that was neo-Nazi. That's what we're talking about right now. And what I see exactly what you're saying, where there's some people on the left that that has this perception of Putin, but Putin is a capitalist. And while this was going on, and I don't agree with what happened, but I understand how that happened, there was still an anti-war protest that happened in Moscow. There's still anti-war movements that are hugely large in the UK. And for the US, we got to regrow our anti-war movement. We really do. And you know, and I could just say that I don't agree with the tactics that Russia is doing right now. But look at what happened today as well too in the US. The bombing Somalia, and also Saudi is destroying the hell out of Yemen, and that's our tax dollars, that's our money. So when are we going to stop being biased and acknowledge all this? Because this is part of the reason why we have the issue that we have now. This is a capitalist government, but they are also imposing on this imperialist government that we have here, the United States, which is the main course is world domination, which is why they wanted that coup in Ukraine and that civil war that happened in Donbass, because Donbass didn't really want anything to do with the Nazi influence that was happening in the Western Ukraine and Kiev. I'm just trying to think, like, how could this have been prevented, you know? And just thinking about the expansion of NATO that also caused this. Like, should NATO disband? You know what I mean? Is there even a use for NATO at this point? Like, other European countries don't really care. They just, you know, it's the US that really cares about NATO.
NATO is definitely a relic at this point. So I actually grew up next to like a NATO base in Germany, because I'm actually a military brat. But it's just interesting. Like, you've seen, like, it seemed like such a natural thing when I was a kid, and as I've grown up, and the world's changed, and like I've changed. I'm just looking at it. It is definitely like a relic. It was created to counter the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact, right? Which, you know, like it doesn't exist anymore.
The Soviet Union is dead, liberals. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
I just need y'all to know that the Soviet Union is gone. It hasn't been around since 1991. That's it. And that was a coup too, by the way.
Yeah, definitely a coup. But you see, like the even internally, the solidarity is fractured. Like Germany is basically saying they won't support military action in Ukraine at all.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, but then you have Poland that really wants military action. And even earlier with Syria, you had situations where NATO militaries were actually fighting each other in northern Syria, which was really weird to watch if you were, sitting there refreshing the Syria Live map back in 2017.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. They're like, we hate each other now. Let's fight.
Yeah, now the Turkey was fighting. Turkey actually accidentally bombed some U.S. troops in northern Syria and Kamshili.
Man, this is interesting. So we covered talking about. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I don't even think if NATO decides to go to war, I don't think NATO will actually go to war. I think it's going to break the coalition.
Yeah. So I think so. We covered that. The reason why this happens is because one, NATO is expanding. My fingers right here. NATO is expanding, and that was an ask from Russia. I mean, that was actually a democratic decision from all Russian officials, actually, that said we do not want NATO to expand. And then we also covered the fact that this happened, this whole sole purpose happened because this government in 2014 was put in power from a coup that was backed by Israel and the United States of America. So what we're seeing right here in the civil war that happened that killed 14,000 people and that massacre that happened in Donbass, and why this is now a republic we're seeing in East Ukraine, all this is going on because the United States continues to meddle in other countries' affairs. And Ukraine, like Iggy said, Ukraine has nothing. Ukraine is not as powerful, and they are set at this position. I feel bad for the President Zelensky. I really do. He probably didn't realize this was going to happen when he got elected in 2019. He probably thought that he was going to be able to do what he campaigned for. Then he realized that, I should shut my mouth because there's some powers here on both sides that will kill me. I think he's been in fearful this whole time. And it's probably like a sigh of relief after all the carnage is gone. And if he still lives, I mean, he's not going to be in power anymore, right? So that's the next question. What is next after this? Because we already saw the statement from Putin. And then I listened to fault lines. And they had a specialist from the UN on there that talked about how Russia is intending to snuff out this military power. They're only attacking military establishments. They snuffed out their air bases, not their air bases, their air support. So what is the end goal for Russia? What does Russia want? What do you think that Russia wants, Iggy?
So well, for one, I think looking at it from their point of view, they've been stuck in that slow conflicts, basically a frozen conflicts with Ukraine for since 2014. So they definitely want that conflict to be over and not have to retreat on that front. So I think what their goals are definitely complete demilitarization of Ukraine, just to kind of take them joining NATO off the table. And then I think they also are going to fight for at least federalization of Ukraine. Because a secret is they don't really want Donbass. They want Novorossiya. So that includes Odessa and part of the breadbasket of Ukraine. Odessa had some pretty big protests when the Donetsk and Luhansk declared their independence.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So those ones got, like the ones in Kharkiv and Odessa were actually crushed pretty quickly. and the ones that ended up surviving and forming the separatist movements were in Donetsk and Luhansk. So I think how far that goes is going to depend on how successful they are militarily, because it seems like a mixed bag. They're making really quick advances in the south, but they've stalled out rather in the east on the line of contact, and they've been trying very hard to get into Kharkiv, and I have not seen them actually do that anywhere.
Okay, so we're looking at overnight thing. This looks like this is going to be going on a lot, probably throughout the weekend. This dude named Scott Ritter that was talking on the broadcast for Fault Lines, he was saying that he thinks that they will be done with Ukraine in a month, and seeing what that looks like. Like I said, I don't think this is the I don't think this is the right way of doing things, right? You don't think you need
Yeah, I think when you look at modern war, I think it was Howard Zinn said all modern war is a war on children. Like it's civilian casualties are always going to be high with conventional warfare. Yeah. And that's whether it's the US or Russia, because a lot of people will like point at civilian casualties from Russia, but the US, like US pioneered, and now everyone uses the like sort of shock and awe doctrine, where they use lots of artillery, lots of airstrikes, and that's what we're seeing in Ukraine. So that's going to it's already caused a massive refugee crisis. Like there's 10-mile long traffic jams at the border crossing into Poland. So the human cost of this is something that's going to drastically affect the way millions of people live their lives, not just in Ukraine, but like, for instance, there's in my neighborhood, there's already a pretty large diaspora community from Ukraine. So you're looking at the same sort of depopulation that you saw in Syria, but I think on a more advanced timeline. Like it's looking like lots and lots and lots of people are fleeing. Actually, Zelensky just banned the emigration of all fighting age males so that they can be called into national service, because they're essentially trying to mobilize their entire population. So that's it's pretty nightmarish stuff. So
yeah.
I think when we get into sort of the commentating from the West on things like this, when we lose track of the actual human realities of what the people themselves are facing, like I think it can lead to flawed analysis. Like we should always try to be with the masses, not necessarily with any particular state.
I totally agree with you on that. And this is something that I have been saying on Facebook and other social medias today as well too, talking about the outcome of what's going to happen to the people that live there, and also the outcome of what's going to happen to every single country whose economy is involved around that, with gas, with grain, with all these other resources. I mean, in California, I mean, people don't really understand how complex the oil system is. From my understanding, we was independent under Trump, but we're not anymore under Biden. And we need these type of oil reserves because everybody has gas, and it's going up. It's going to go up even more. You know, I mean, that whole sign. Excuse me, my somebody's cooking dinner. That's what y'all hear. Y'all hear chopping. Somebody's cooking dinners, and I like food. So, but that whole side, of oil in the pipeline. For instance, Germany just stopped one of the pipelines that Russia was given and stuff like that. But my understanding is that what they knew this was going to happen. They knew there was going to be sanctions, and they already made some preservatives to function better in Russia, because sanctions kill, and it's the working class people that suffers from sanctions, which I need Americans especially to understand that, because we don't see that here. We don't see what goes on, the real carnage from sanctions. And now that we have this whole twist of a new economic system that's about to come up to play for the global stage with gas and all these other resources, it's going to be pretty difficult for a lot of working class people, especially in Europe and especially here. Um, so this is something that is definitely going to come. Definitely going to come. If you have anything to add on that, Iggy.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why Germany has been so cautious with their public statements. Is that's like Russia is how they heat their homes with the natural gas pipelines. But I think people like their World War III memes. I don't know if it'll go that far, but we're already seeing like Zelensky's calling on Turkey to close the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus, which is the two straits that connects the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. So they want them to close it, which would, like, I don't even know how a global economy this complicated like would respond. Like we saw how our supply chain crisis is still going crazy after from the coronavirus pandemic. I have no idea how naval warfare, like genuine near peer naval warfare, will affect global shipping. Like that's just something that I don't even think anybody's like gamed that out.
Right. And that's going to
The
be
Russian military has begun a brutal assault on
let me
people.
change. I hope nobody heard that. Nobody hears Biden. I don't want to play Sleepy Joe right now. Did anybody hear that? No, I hope not. But it was playing in my ear. I was like, I hope nobody hears that. I was going to show a clip of Biden's speech real quick, but it's long and he puts me to sleep. So I can't really take him seriously. He's like, in the end of his speech, he's saying that they're basically going to they're going to hurt Russia and everybody's going to fucking pay for this. This is very violent rhetoric, and working people in Russia do not deserve any of this brutality. The West keeps blackballing these citizens. Let's forget about Putin. Let's forget about these oligarchs that are in Russia that is problematic. We acknowledge that. And y'all don't acknowledge that. These liberals still think that Russia is communist for some reason. But what's going to happen to these working people overseas? They're basically dehumanizing them with this speech that Biden's giving. They're basically making them all feel like they are evil when they're just working people like me and you. And the fact that by the way, this is the same progressive president that voted for the Iraq war. The same progressive president that was so mad that his kids was going to go to a diversity school, he called it a jungle or some shit like that. So this guy is unfucking hinged. Unfucking hinged. They literally had to take his top off. So the problem is right now is what are they going to do? Do they have bite? Are they able to do something about this? That's my question. And what is that going to look like? And Russia has a lot of allies right now. I mean, their U.S. foreign policy literally forced them to have a alliance with China, which Kushner, is that his name? The old dinosaur dude, he's still alive. He always had a plan to keep them separate because he never wanted them to be together, which is honestly, if you're imperialist, that's a good idea. But they're together now. So is the U.S. prepared for what they're about to do, and can they actually deal with it?
So I don't think so, and that's one of the things where I'll get into conflict with China stands on, because I don't think the U.S. military is suicidal. They definitely like to chest beat, but I think they're aware of the fact that we're sort of in a situation not nearly as bad as after Vietnam, but I think it's analogous. Our military has been an occupation police force for 20 goddamn years, and I think that it's not built to do near peer conflict anymore. So I don't think it has the ability to wage war on a modern industrial military power. Like if you look at things like just the state of the U.S. Navy, like our aircraft carriers are like the big force projection and the big propaganda tool, right? It's how we do our gunboat diplomacy, but a lot of them aren't fully. Their like air fleets are in disrepair.
Because they're always using them.
Yeah, and they're just not being maintained. The U.S. military budget is bloated, but it's bloated with fraud and graft. It's
Right.
I honestly think the fact that so much money is being dumped into it means that it's going to be less effective, because it's just, our defense contractors like Halliburton and Boeing and Raytheon just they see it as a opportunity just to farm money. So you'll see these boondoggle projects, like the new fighter jet that they spend God knows how much money on, and it still doesn't really work. Whereas Russia has been they're not as successful with their blitzkrieg invasion as I think they wanted to be, but like they've still been consistently at the forefront of like what modern doctrine looks like. Whereas the U.S. has been, like I said, they've been occupying other countries for so long that I don't think they remember how to actually fight a conventional war.
Right. Do you remember Bin Laden? Great example. I'm pretty sure everybody remembers Bin Laden. Bin Laden was trained by the CIA to learn how to topple to fight basically huge, powerful governments. At that time was the USSR. Why do you think we lost the war in the Middle East? Because we trained those people how to fight big, powerful governments. That's why that took on for so long. We lost that war. We started shit that we should never freaking started. And just like Iggy is saying, we got people all over the world just continuing this imperialist shit. That's a lot of resources. Are they going to be able to accumulate all that together to fight forces like Russia and China? That's the reality check right there. Like, is that what you're basically saying, Iggy? Like, I want to like make it an example out of it.
Yeah, I think like Osama bin Laden said he wanted to get the U.S. like in one of his speeches, he said he wanted to get the U.S. caught in a protracted conflict with it's a place like in Afghanistan where their resources would be sapped and their international prestige would be tarnished, and that's exactly what happened. So when exactly according to plan, and as you pointed out, like that, they were trained on how to do that. We followed the script for them pretty perfectly. So like, I don't think that the U.S. can actually bring its forces to bear, and I think that's why you see rising imperial powers flexing their muscles now, and why you're seeing like large scale conventional warfare returning to Europe is just because like everyone's waking up to the reality that the U.S. is not the world's metropole anymore, because it just can't project power like it used to.
Right. And I don't want to take up more of your time, so let's get back. Let's try to wrap this up soon. So thank you so much for coming on here, Iggy. I want to get to the comment. There's two comments that I want to talk about real quick. I see in the comment section, but before we get to the comment section, I wanted to say that this is literally a different. I want Americans to hear this. Everybody that knows Americans, I'm American, you're American. give this to Americans so they can hear this, very clearly. This is not a game that's being played right here. I don't think the U.S. took Putin seriously. I don't think the U.S. ever took Russia seriously. They've been saying this for years. I just want y'all to know this. So right now, like, we have toppled small governments. We have never fought huge world powers. And Russia's a world power and China's a world power. Iran is big too. So we're right now trying to start things with big dogs at this point. And that is going to blow this whole thing they got going on out of proportion. Iggy was talking about the budget. That is just, nobody even knows how big that budget is. Majority of that goes to payrolls, to paying off the contractors, to paying off the mercenaries that they send when they bring back their troops. That's where that money goes to. So when somebody says, well, we spend the most money in the world, there's no way in hell they can stop us. You got to look at where these checks go to. You got to see who is getting these checks. Yeah, we dominate the world. I keep saying we. It's the ruling class. The ruling class dominates the world, yes. But it's getting down to the wire here. And I don't know what's going to happen. But what my fear is for working class people here and abroad, how we're going to be affected by this. I just done a 13-hour shift before I came here. I sacrificed my time to be here because this is so important. What's happening is very important. And I want to use my little ass podcast and my little ass platform that only get a few hundred views a month, not a month, like a week. So people can hear exactly what's going on. You're getting an alternative perspective. Yes, we are straight up socialists here. All right. My homie's a Maoist. I'm a Leninist. We are straight up socialists here. And we are anti-war. And we condemn all violence. And we stand for class war, because that's the only war. But let's get right to the comment section. We have 2 comments from Jubilee. Jubilee, was Russia correct to combat NATO influence in Ukraine? I don't like how it went down, but I don't blame them. That's just my answer. We already covered this, but go ahead, Iggy.
Yeah, I think it's really the only option they had from a geopolitical standpoint if they want to maintain their status as a world power. Like Putin pointed out that Ukraine still has an official policy of military reconquest of the Crimea, which if they join NATO, that would be World War III, like automatically. Though, again, I don't think Article 13, which is the mutual defense part of the treaty, is actually as ironclad as people think it is. For certain countries, it does not apply to Turkey anymore. So I don't know that it would apply to Ukraine in that situation. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I understand why they did it. And I think if we're looking back on it, it shouldn't have surprised us as much as it did, because I think that, at least from their perspective, it was their only option.
Yeah, and I want to remind people that they tried so hard to do this in a peaceful resolution. Every Russian official in the UN, they repeated themselves because people kept saying, "Oh, they're going to invade. They're going to invade." They kept repeating themselves. And there's a UN clip that I want to search for that happened 2 weeks ago. The U.S. actually invited China to talk about this, and China said, "This is your fault. You caused this situation. Do not ask us." So it's important to understand that this NATO is because of the U.S. NATO expanding is because of the U.S. Why is Colombia a part of NATO? Colombia is nowhere near Europe. Like, that makes no sense to me. We have another comment right here, which I didn't even know about this. So Julie also commented again and said, one of the first laws Ukraine enacted post 2014 was barring communist parties from parliament. That's not cool. It's not cool.
Yeah, the post-Maidan government is, especially in the beginning, is virulently anti-communist. And I think that's why it's been so easy to, even with Zelensky and the moderates in power, to paint them all as neo-Nazis, because they're definitely way more comfortable with neo-Nazis than they are with us.
That's scary.
Yeah.
You know, just to be comfortable. But we know Zelensky wasn't a Nazi. Zelensky was a comedian that drunk a glass of water, but he didn't realize that shit was poison. That's basically what happened to Zelensky.
Yeah, I've heard some of our comrades who are in Ukraine have talked about Zelensky being too afraid of the neo-Nazis to like push for an actual political settlement of the conflicts, which would be the implementation of the Minsk agreement, allowing for autonomy in eastern Ukraine.
Right. Well, Iggy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out. We had other guests, guys, but like I said, I put this together very shortly, so they weren't able to make the time. So next time, let's have a more of a broader discussion with more socialists on the panel, and we can add more progressives and left-leaning Democrats and all that stuff like that. That would be cool. Thank you so much, Jubilee, for commenting. I'm interviewing a Green Party senator. Well, I don't think he's senator yet, but he's running for Senate in California. So look out for that interview. And also, I'm interviewing another political analyst who has a podcast. Tommy Nation, Tommy Podcast. I forgot what it's called, but look out for that too. And Iggy, you're definitely a friend of the show. Definitely, whenever. If you have any time in the future, you're definitely welcome just to even talk about what's current events and stuff like that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Have a very great day. Great night. Well, it's kind of sad under these circumstances. We're probably not going to be able to sleep. Like we far left people, we think about world shit all the damn time. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to break away sometimes. But get some sleep, get some rest, and I thank you so much for coming on, and have a good day. Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, have a good one. Thanks.
And we are
blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
Oh, I want to say before I close out, we got to stop all of our conflict between each other as communists and socialists, okay? Maoists, Trotskys, and Leninists, everybody. We got to find a common ground. That's all I got to say about that. And I'm glad that you saw a Maoist and a Leninist have a little talk about what's going on right now. That was beautiful.